And in our top business story, the UAE has agreed to provide Egypt's central bank with a $1 billion deposit for a duration of 6 years, according to a report by Emirates news agency WAM. Egypt this month signed a preliminary deal for a $12 billion IMF lending program contingent upon the government securing $5 to $6 billion in a bilateral financing for the first year. Egypt has previously also secured pledges from the UAE and Saudi Arabia for about $4.5 billion. The IMF agreed in principle to grant Egypt the $12 billion three-year facility to support a government reform program aimed at plugging a budget gap and rebalancing the currency market. But this still must go to the IMF board for approval. Egypt's net foreign reserves fell sharply to $15.536 billion at the end of July. The North African country had roughly $36 billion in reserves before an uprising in 2011 ushered in a period of political uncertainty that affected the country's tourism industry and foreign investors, key sources of foreign exchange. Dubai developer Nakheel has announced that it will completely be debt-free following full payment of its 4.4 billion dirhams trade creditor sukuk when it matures on Thursday, the 25th of August. The scheduled payment marks the end of the company's financial restructuring, which began in August 2011, with all creditor obligations now fulfilled. 2 years ago, on the 21st of August 2014, Nakheel had prepaid all 7.9 billion dirhams of its bank debt 4 years before the scheduled repayment date. In a press release, the chairman of Nakheel, Ali Rashid Luther, stated that the debt payment is one of the biggest milestones in the company's history, adding that in 6 years since March 2010, Nakheel has achieved one of the largest, most complex financial restructuring exercises, followed by the successful execution of a new business plan that placed it on a new path to growth. The Nakheel statement emphasized that the sukuk repayment follows a string of other milestones, including meeting the restructuring plan targets 2 years ahead of the scheduled 5-year implementation program, with savings of 25 billion dirhams and repaying all 7.9 billion dirhams of its bank debt 4 years ahead of the scheduled repayment date. A new report has suggested that the UAE's economy is likely to record its slowest growth since 2010 this year at around 2%. Capital Economics stated in its latest UAE forecast that the country's strong balance sheet, however, means that it should start to recover in 2017-18. The report noted that despite low oil prices, the UAE's economy held up well last year, with GDP growth picking up to 3.8% from 3.1% in 2014, helped by strong growth in the oil sector. By contrast, the non-oil economy recorded its weakest growth in 5 years, largely due to fiscal tightening. This continues throughout 2016, and the boost from oil falls. Growth, according to Capital Economics, will fall to 2% by the end of the year, compounded by the fact that Dubai in particular is highly exposed to weak economic growth across the rest of the Gulf. The report added that recovery is expected in the 2017-18 fiscal year, as the UAE has been more proactive in terms of economic diversification than other GCC states, and is therefore expected to cope relatively well with a prolonged period of low oil prices to be one of the Gulf's best performing economies in the coming years. Passenger traffic at Dubai World Central increased by more than 95% in the first half of the year, according to a report issued by Dubai Airports. The first 6 months of the year saw passenger traffic reach 410,278, up 95.4% compared to 209,989 passengers recorded during the corresponding period in 2015. Passenger traffic at DWC is mainly driven by Fly-Dubai Airlines, which operates 35 weekly flights to 5 destinations from DWC. The airline will reportedly increase the schedule of weekly flights according to its upcoming winter schedule. DWC is currently served by 17 passenger carriers operating an average of 174 flights weekly to 39 international destinations, and is home to 34 scheduled cargo operators that fly to as many as 141 destinations worldwide. The surge in passenger operations at DWC contributed significantly to aircraft landings and departures, which totaled 18,126 in the first half of the year, up 4.8% compared to 17,302 movements recorded during the first 6 months of 2015. During the period, freight volumes totaled 430,132 tonnes, a decline of 2.9% compared to the first half of 2015, when the airport handled 443,011 tonnes of freight.